Hundreds of years ago, humans used to be a species that was extremely weak and was not even able to protect itself against small animals. They used to be pathetic in terms of actual strength and violence. They had no weapons, were inept at fighting, and overall had no way to defend themselves from any kind of natural calamity. Once they ended up discovering a breed of people with superhuman strength who were so astronomically stronger than them that the humans collectively started calling them nobles. These nobles were at first wary of humans, but soon they realized that humans are virtually harmless and defenseless. This, combined with the fact that humans gave these nobles an immense amount of respect, led to their acquiring the philosophy of noblesse oblige. This means that every noble is bound to protect humans at any cost. This way, the nobles and the humans formed a very special bond in which the nobles were clearly ranked above the mortal humans and had the respect and admiration of all the humans, who did every task that was required of them, whereas the nobles made sure that not a single innocent human was ever hurt. More than 800 years ago, Ray, a noblesse, title denoting the head of the nobles, fell asleep. He only recently awoke after an unknown assailant pulled his coffin out of a safe. He is shocked to see how different the world has become as technology has advanced so much, and everywhere he goes, he witnesses creations by humans that were never possible before. He wanders around and is able to find his servant, Frank. Frank is shocked to see Ray, and he immediately takes him inside his house to tell him what has been happening in the world recently. Ray finds it amusing how much the human world has changed and wants to experience it firsthand. Frank, who is the director of a high school, enrolls Ray in one of his classes so he can spend some time with modern humans and understand the development that he didn't see in the past 820 years. Ray quickly befriends a tall, red-haired guy named Shin, who is a really good martial artist and an excellent athlete. He is surprised by how casually these humans are addressing him, the noblesse. He realizes that the humans seem to have lost their instinct for recognizing the nobles, which makes them believe that they must not be very heavily dependent on them anymore. One night, while he was having his evening tea with Frank, an unknown individual walked over to them, introducing himself as M21. He tells them that he is a modified human who was created by an evil scientific organization called the Union. According to him, they were created in test tubes, never given a name, and only referred to as their serial numbers. They were injected with countless drugs and trial medicines to check their effects, and the conditions were so horrible for them that all of his friends ended up dying during one of the other parts of the process, except him and one friend of his, who both survived and gained superhuman strength and abilities. Numerous covert organizations then tried to control the world's power by using them as weapons of destruction. Finally, he was able to escape the Union with his friend, who decided to go their separate ways for the time being to find a purpose for their lives. The director invited M21 over after learning about his abilities and how he ended up saving the lives of students from the school. He asked him to stay at his place for the time being and work for him, as the Union will keep sending men after him to try and kill him. He thinks for a while and asks what he wants in return. Frank laughs at him and tells him that he just has to act as security for the school as of now, and M21 agrees. The next day, Ray goes over to the school and is immediately swarmed by a horde of girls who are charmed by his regal demeanor and elegance. He walks inside the classroom and notices that Shin has a fractured hand and is wearing a cast, which has been doodled on by his friends. He decides that he even wants to try this weird custom and takes out his marker, doodling all over his cast. He then sits down and starts attending class with them and even goes to have lunch with them, where he insists on having ramen every day, as ever since he tasted this modern delicacy, he cannot go back to food from his time. After the class was over, Shin and his loser friend, whose name I don't know, started talking about playing mobile games together and asked Ray if he wanted to join. Ray, however, has no idea what a mobile phone is and looks puzzled. Shin and the loser explained to him that his cell phone is a very important tool in modern times, as once you have it, you cannot get lost, you will never be bored, and you can talk to anyone at any given moment. Ray can't believe that such a thing exists and goes over to Frank in the evening, who was chilling atop the school with M21. He tells Frank about the technology Shin was talking about. Frank smiles at him and tells him that the world has changed a lot since Ray went to sleep and technology like this exists now. Frank gets Ray the most modern, high-spec version of a smartphone the very next day, which Ray takes to his class. Both Shin and his friend are astonished to see him holding that phone, but they are happy for him. They, however, soon realize that Ray has no idea how to operate a phone, as when Shin asks him for his number and email, Ray looks at him blankly, as he has no idea what is happening. The loser friend grabs the phone out of Ray's hand and starts teaching him how to use it. He also tells him how to send an email, which Ray immediately learns and starts sending to Frank. While having lunch that day, the trio heard a bunch of noise coming from the school playground and decided to investigate. They see that a bunch of goons in their cars have entered the school property and are harassing the female students while beating the males. Ray is very intrigued by this, as he has never seen humans squabbling amongst themselves during his time. One of the brutes grabbed the janitor and was going to punch him, but Shin rushed in and blocked the punch with his injured hand. The man looks at Shin and accuses him of trying to steal his girlfriend. The loser asks Shin why he did that, but Shin replies that she was going to fall off the curb, so all he did was grab her so she wouldn't fall down. The man, however, has no intention of hearing him out, and his goons start abusing the kids at his school. Shin warns him and tells him to get lost, but the brute starts throwing punches at Shin. He dodges most of the punches, but gets cornered where he cannot back off and ends up getting hit straight in the face by one of his punches. Rai watches over the commotion and stares at M21, who really wants to go and stop all of this, but he is scared of revealing his superhuman strength as he is trying to lay low. The brute starts kicking the crap out of Shin and tries to stomp on his head, but Shin rolls over. The brute tries to punch him, but Shin dodges all of his punches before swiftly delivering a punch of his own straight to his face. The brute gets even more angry and starts throwing heavy punches, while Shin tries to block them with his injured hand. His cast starts breaking off, and the brute punches him in the gut, throwing him on the loser as they both fall to the ground. He moves towards Shin, but is blocked by the janitor, who tells him to go away as he won't let him harm the students. But the brute doesn't give a damn and picks up the janitor by his throat. Before he could do anything, however, he was interrupted by M21, who walked calmly towards him and told him to let the janitor go. The brute looks at him and tells him to piss off if he doesn't want to get beaten up. M21 replies once again by telling him to leave the janitor alone, so the brute drops the janitor and tries to punch him. M21, however, is extremely fast and easily dodges his punch before grabbing his chain and slamming his head on the ground. The brute tries to grab his hand to make him let go, but realizes that M21 is way too strong. He then slams the brute back into one of the cars and threatens to kill him, which scares him so much that he immediately runs off with his gang. Everyone cheers for M21, who is surprised by this as he is not used to appreciation. Ray, who was watching all this, simply goes back inside to finish his ramen as he slowly realizes how dangerous humans have become compared to the olden days. The next day starts as usual, and Shin is late for class as usual. The teacher finally walks in with two new students by his side, whom he claims are transfer students from Korea. The guy is short and has a spiky set of hair and introduces himself as Regis, while the girl introduces herself as Sierra. The teacher then tells Shin that it is his responsibility to show them around the entire school, which he reluctantly agrees to. Rai immediately realizes that these students are nobles and not ordinary humans, and even the new students seem to notice Rai's unusually strong aura, which is strong even for a noble. They all sit down for lunch in the afternoon, and Shin notices that even these new students seem to be inept at modern things similar to Rai. Regis tries to use a chopstick but fails, while Sierra decides to simply use a spoon. Later that day, Shin, the loser, Regis, Sierra, and Rai all went back to Frank's place, where they were hanging out when Frank walked in with M21. He is surprised and annoyed to see Shin and his friend making the place dirty, but he knows that they are Rai's friends, so he tells them that they are welcome and goes inside the kitchen to simply wash dishes. When he goes back out, Shin tells him that neither Sierra nor Regis have anywhere to live in this town and asks whether Frank can take them in. Frank again gets annoyed at him, but Rai says that he doesn't mind, which forces Frank to say that he doesn't mind either. The following day, a group of goons stopped Rai, Shin, the loser, and Sierra as they were all walking back to their homes. They all surround the group, and one of them even pulls a knife on Rai. Shin tells them not to harm any of his friends and that he will come with them, so they are all taken to the gang's hideout. They are surrounded by a bunch of hooligans, and the boss looks at Shin and tells him that he's going to learn a lesson today. Shin tells the loser to take Sierra and Rai and move aside while he throws his bag and gets ready for a fight. One of the guys rushes towards him with a bunch, but Shin is easily able to dodge his punch while also dodging an attack from behind and punching him to the ground. Another guy tries to hit him with a wooden staff, but Shin easily dodges him and knees him in the face. Two more guys try to attack him, but he is easily able to dodge their attacks while delivering a strong counterpunch. Sadly, however, he starts getting swarmed by a bunch of them and gets caught from behind by one of the enemies while another tries to hit him. He is able to defend himself, but again, one guy tries to choke him out from behind, prompting Rai to take a step in order to save him. But Shin shouts at him to stay back and uses his jujitsu skills to throw the big guy off. He keeps getting swarmed and was about to get overwhelmed when Regis and M21 arrive at the scene. Regis tries to interfere, but M21 stops him and tells him not to show his weird power to humans. Regis looks at Shin and realizes that he is not helpless. In fact, he again grabs his momentum and starts beating all of them. Regis is shocked to see a human defending himself and the people around him, as this was the supposed job of the nobles, but M21 tells him that humans have learned to defend themselves when the need comes. One of the goons tries to grab the loser as a hostage, but Shin kicks him before he can reach the loser. The leader of the hooligans finally had enough and took out a gun, pointing it at Shin. And 21 decides to intervene at this point and appears in front of the leader, grabbing his hand and pushing him to the ground, while the brute tries to use a steel pipe to hit him. And 21 simply uses his arm to defend against the steel pipe, while an angry Shin tries to punch the guy full force in the face, but stops at the last moment when M21 tells him that it's enough. Shin moves back and tells them that if they ever want to take revenge on him, they should attack him while he's alone. They all start walking back home, and Regis comments upon the fact that humans have become very savage in these past years, to which M21 solemnly replies that he has not seen what kind of savage and heartless acts humans are capable of committing now. The next day, they all sit around and have dinner while Regis and M21 bicker with one another as usual. Regis hates the fact that M21 gave up his humanity to gain superhuman powers, whereas M21 hates Regis for calling him a traitor to humanity. They are both interrupted by Frank, however, who has had enough of these freeloaders and tells them to clean up the mess that they create. Sierra is his sweetheart and automatically starts cleaning, whereas Regis argues with Frank while cleaning, asking why Ray doesn't clean. Frank quickly ignores him and tries to shift the conversation, but Regis the midget pushes on and says that even Ray should clean. Before Frank could shut him up, however, Ray simply got up and walked towards him. Frank is terrified of what Ray might do, but to his surprise, he simply walks up, puts one of the empty wrappers into the bin and moves away. Frank lets out a sigh of relief and starts cleaning up. The next day at school, Frank and Rye call him 21 in their chamber, and Frank informs him that he has opened his separate bank account from 21. He seems surprised and asks why he would do that. Frank looks at him and tells him that he is working for them, so obviously he needs a bank account where they will send his salary. This completely shocks M21, as before this he was simply used as a weapon and wasn't paid anything his entire life. This is the first time anyone has offered to pay him a salary, like they would any other normal human. He thanks them from the heart and moves outside. While walking back home in the evening, he was stopped by two men. One's a crazy-looking dude, whereas the other is a total fatty who is eating a chicken leg. The Joker-looking dude tells M21 that they have business with him and calls him by his code name. This immediately rings alarm bells in his mind, as no one apart from the Union knows his code name. He asks them about their identities, and they introduce themselves as Shark and Hammer, but for our convenience, we will call Hammer Fatty because he is fat. Shark reveals that they work for DA5, which he recognizes immediately as the Union's Special Operations Team. He asks them why they are here, to which Shark replies that they are going to take him with them, and they also end up insulting M21's only living comrade. He gets mad immediately, and Shark realizes this, provoking him even more. M21 becomes the Wolverine and rushes towards Shark, trying to hit him, but the Shark is way too fast for him to catch and dodges all of his attacks before kicking him in the gut. He then steps on his chest and tells him that he is just a useless science experiment meant to be discarded. And 21 again becomes the Wolverine and strikes at him, but the Shark jumps back just in time. Then 21 repositions himself, but the Shark doesn't give him time to catch his breath and rushes at him with a knife. And 21 blocks the first attack barely, but the Shark pushes on with the attack, making it harder and harder for him to defend himself. He realizes that the Shark is much stronger than him, and if this keeps going on, he has no chance of surviving all this. The Shark finally manages to break through his defense and cuts him on the shoulders and legs before landing a special attack that delivers countless slashes to his body, bloodying him up. He backs off and drops to one knee, trying to catch his breath, while Fatty calls from behind him, telling Shark not to kill him. The Shark, however, starts moving forward but stops when he sees Sierra and Regis behind M21. He looks behind him and is shocked to see both of them. He tells them to leave immediately and that they should have never been here. Regis, however, is confident in his abilities and starts shit-talking Shark. This annoys him and he tries to attack Regis, but M21 comes in between, taking the hit and saving Regis. Regis, however, still doesn't care and starts talking again, but this time M21 shouts at him to shut up, which surprises him. The Shark moves forward but is stopped halfway when a guy lands behind M21 and tells the Shark to stop. He looks behind him and realizes that the guy is Cran, the leader of DA5. He tells Shark to back off as they want him alive, and tells M21 that he is coming with them. And 21 agrees to go with them without further resistance if they let both Regis and Sierra go unhurt, as the leader promises him before they escort him away. Regis and Sierra return to Frank's house, but when asked about M21, Regis simply shrugs it off because he is annoyed at him for stopping him from battling them. Frank asks Sierra what happened, and she informs him that they were walking back when they spotted M21 with two people who she doesn't know. They seemed to be having a quarrel, but at the end of it, M21 voluntarily walked back with them. Frank thanks her for the information and thinks about what could have happened. He knows that the people that Sierra is talking about must be the members of the Union, but he doesn't know whether M21 went with them to save Regis and Sierra, or whether he was actually a spy sent to get information on Ray. And finally, when his job was done, he returned. M21 is taken to a safe house, where he is being beaten up by Shark to get information out of him. Kranz, however, tells him to stop and asks M21 to simply tell them what happened to the coffin he was tasked with retrieving. When he refuses to answer, Kranz asks whether he has been ordered by the Union to stay quiet. This makes M21 realize that they don't seem to know that he betrayed the Union and released the Noblesse from the coffin. Shark again starts kicking him, saying that his mission doesn't matter as of now because the mission of the DA5 takes priority. And 21 realizes that he could use this situation for his benefit and decides to stall them. He tells them that he will give them information only if they are willing to make an agreement. Kranz looks at him and tells him that he is in no position to bargain, and if he wants, he can simply use the truth serum created by the Union on him. M21 simply smirks at him and tells him that the truth serum will work on him, and he will die before he gives them the information that they want. The only way out is to make an agreement with him. Kranz asks what he wants, and he replies that he needs information about all of his comrades who died in M24 as well. Kranz tells him that he cannot make that agreement because he himself has no information about them. And 21, however, knows about the members of the DA5 and tells him that they have a hacker on their team, and hacking the Union's system should be child's play for him. The hacker, named Tao, smiles from behind and tells him that he is indeed correct. Kranz tells him that they have a deal and asks him about the information, but he tells them that he is hungry and wants to eat first, trying to buy as much time as possible. Shark and Fatty are left in charge of M21, and Shark immediately starts hitting him, asking for information. M21, however, tells him that he will only provide any information after he receives his part of the deal. Shark gets mad at him and draws a knife out, threatening him. M21 calls his bluff and tells him that if he kills him, he will go against the direct orders of Kranz and will lose any information he could have gotten out of him. Just then, a long-haired guy arrives with Tao and tells Shark to back off. Shark unleashes his frustration on his teammate and calls out the long-haired guy for being a softie. He berates him for letting the woman and the children live when their job was to clear the area. The long-haired guy tells him that they were of no harm to them, and that's why he let them live, but Shark reveals that after the long-haired guy left, he ended up killing all of them anyway. This gets a reaction from the long-haired guy, whom I am going to call Pony from now on because of his ponytail. So Pony takes out his gun and aims it at Shark, but Tai quickly jumps and grabs his arm, telling him not to do anything stupid. Shark simply walks past him, telling him that he will take the information from M21 one way or another. On the other side, Regis is returning from school alongside Shin and the loser when he suddenly spots Shark and Fatty off in the distance, standing on a building. Shin turns around to talk to him, but Regis disappears completely and meets Shark and Fatty in an abandoned park. Shark commends his bravery but tells him that it is extremely stupid, but in return, Regis throws massive insults at him, leading Shark to throw his knife at Regis. Regis easily grabs the knife midair and tells Shark that a weakling like him can't do anything. Shark gets mad, rushes towards him with his knives and tries attacking him, but Regis is easily able to dodge his attacks while backing off and suddenly uses a skill that makes his entire body freeze up. Regis tries to land a straight hit, but Shark manages to partially block it, only resulting in a scratch on his face. He tries attacking him again, but Regis again uses a time stop before trying to hit him, but this time Shark also manages to dodge the attack by a hair's margin, saving his vitals. They both go at it again, but Fatty throws a bunch of small explosives, which forces both of them to back off. He throws a pill at Shark and tells him not to take Regis lightly. Shark reluctantly pops the pill in his mouth, and suddenly his muscles start growing, and his aura changes completely. His speed becomes absurdly fast, as within a blink he appears behind Regis and tries to attack him, but Regis jumps back. To his surprise, however, Shark appears behind him again and dodges when Regis tries to land a punch. He tries to throw a knife at Regis again, but he easily blocks it before trying to use his special skill, which doesn't work this time. Shark laughs at him and tells him that his trick won't work on him anymore, before mocking him. This makes Regis angry, and before he could even react, he appeared behind Shark and punched him in the spine, making Shark yelp in pain as he never expected Regis to be this powerful. He would have died, but Regis stops himself in the middle as Fatty brings the attention to himself and shows the unconscious bodies of Shin and the loser on the floor, telling him to come with him silently. Regis complies reluctantly and is captured by them. In the safe house, M21 is taken to a different room, where he is shocked to see Regis, Shin, and the loser lying on the floor, while Shark threatens to kill them if he doesn't talk. Back at Frank's place, Sierra walks up to Frank and Ray, informing them that something has happened to Regis. She explains that both she and Regis have a very faint neural connection with each other that both of them can feel. According to her, it only gets lost when one of them is either unconscious or dies, which means that Regis is either unconscious or dead at the moment. She thanks them for their hospitality and tells them that she is going to find Regis. Frank tells Ray that Shin emailed him saying that both he and his loser friend are also coming over to play games, but now that he tried to contact them, none of them were picking up the call either. This prompts Ray to get up, and both he and Frank start following Sierra. Back at the safe house, Regis finally wakes up to see himself surrounded by the members of the DA5 faction. Shark tells M21 to reveal any information that he has while he puts a knife to Regis's throat, but M21 turns his face around, claiming that Regis is just an insufferable brat who he doesn't care about, and they are free to do as they please. Regis, however, is as sharp-tongued as usual and starts insulting Shark again, which results in a swift kick to the face. Finally, Shin also wakes up and is shocked to see himself surrounded by these men, but immediately his attention goes towards his unconscious loser friend. He tries to wake him up, and as he wakes up, Shin looks around and spots Regis, battered up, and M21 standing in the distance. He asks M21 what is happening, but he doesn't reply. Regis, however, butts in by saying that M21 has traded his humanity for power, so you cannot expect much from him anyway. Both he and the loser are very confused by this and try to talk to M21, but he refuses to reply. Shark picks Shin up by grabbing him from the collar and puts a knife on his throat, trying to get a response out of M21, but he doesn't budge, claiming that he only knows the kids as some random high schoolers that went to the school where he was posted. Shark gets mad at this and kicks Shin to the floor before stomping on his head. Pony tells him to tone it down, but Shark tells him to shut up as they are no use to them anyway, so it doesn't matter whether they live or die. He adds that it would be better if they died because now they have seen them. Tao, however, tells him to stop, claiming that their memory erasure drug should be enough to wipe their memories and they won't have to kill these kids, but Kranz intervenes, saying that the kids will have to die, shutting both Pony and Tao down. Shark is happy to hear this and pushes Tao away to make his way towards the loser, but Shin grabs his legs and doesn't let go. He shakes Shin off and decides to kill the loser, but Regis jumps in between them, still bound by the special shackle that stops his powers. Shark tells him to move out of the way, but Regis, as usual, ends up shigulking Shark, making him angry again, which results in a big punch to Regis's face. He moves towards him again and picks him up by the hair, but before he can hurt him, Shin decides that he has had enough and jumps in to attack Shark. Shark thinks that Shin is like any other high schooler and decides to simply punch him away, but he dodges his punch and delivers one of his own on his face. Shark drops Regis to the ground and turns towards Shin, grabbing both of his hands and then his throat before starting to choke him to death. The loser immediately runs up to him and grabs his arm, trying to make him let go, begging him to not kill him, even biting his hands to try and stop him. But Shark doesn't care and keeps choking Shin out to the point where his body goes limp and he becomes unconscious. Regis can do nothing but watch because of his shackles, but suddenly, M21 decides that enough is enough and runs up to Shark, becoming Wolverine again and slashes his right arm, forcing him to drop Shin, saving his life. On the other side, Sierra has arrived at the safe house and walks towards the entrance, where her way is blocked by Fatty, who asks her what her job is here with an ugly smile. Sierra calmly tells him to move out of the way, but Fatty realizes that she is one of the nobles with special powers and immediately throws a bunch of bombs at her while simultaneously backing up. He smiles, thinking that he has hurt Sierra, but as the dust clears, he sees her silhouette and feels an intense pain in his torso, seeing that his torso has been slashed open by Sierra without him even realizing. He decides that this is not a good place to fight and throws some more bombs at her before disappearing. Ray and Frank also follow her, but instead of going through the main entrance, they land on the rooftop like Toa bosses. They are met by a pony over there who is waiting for them to come. He asks them about the reason they are here, and Frank, like the coolest guy ever, tells Ray to go ahead as he will join him later before he manifests dark energy around his fists and attacks our pony. Pony, however, shouldn't be taken lightly as he carries an entire briefcase for his defense and blocks his punch before attacking Frank, who also dodges, and they basically end up exchanging their starting positions. Frank mocks Pony's weapon of choice and creates a bunch of dark energy shards and shoots them at Pony, who again uses his briefcase as a shield, while Frank starts getting serious and slashes the entire roof into two parts. As the dust clears, however, Pony shoots him with his sniper, but Frank is easily able to dodge it and rushes towards him once again, but backs off when Pony uses his gun as a melee weapon. He then again tries to use his dark energy to punch him, but Pony is able to point a second hidden pistol at his head, trying to checkmate him. Frank dodges and Pony takes out 2 pistols and starts shooting him, while running as Frank keeps dodging him. Frank uses a very strong slash made up of dark energy, but Pony dodges it and lands on the ground. He then realizes that if this keeps happening, Frank will get the upper hand, so he also grabs the pill and pops it in his mouth. He undergoes a similar metamorphosis and transforms into a black guy with a dark aura. Is this considered blackface? Frank tries to attack him again, but before he can move an inch, Pony simply jumps behind him and aims his gun at his head. Meanwhile, M21 knows that he cannot defeat Shark if he recovers and pushes in with an attack, but Shark is able to defend himself and kicks M21 back before swinging his blade in the air, which is enough to slash through M21's clothing, revealing his roided-up muscles. Shark, however, seems to get insecure about his own body and decides to unleash a flurry of slashes at him, which he is able to dodge and finally grabs his hand while Shark tries to stab him. He kicks M21 again in such a way that he is standing right in front of the kids. He then uses one of his strongest slashes, knowing that M21 won't move out of the way, as if he does, the kids behind him will die. M21 does exactly as he hoped and takes the brunt of the damage, which bloodies him up, and he falls down to his knees. Shark walks towards him and tells him to give up. He stands up again. Shark raises his knife to end the fight, but Regis is able to break through his shackles just at that moment and appears in front of M21, punching Shark in the gut and blasting him into the wall. Regis tells M21 to back off and he gets ready to fight him. Shark immediately gets up and uses his pill because he knows he is no match for him in his normal form. Regis, however, seems on a rampage as he doesn't give a damn and jump kicks him before punching him on the head, throwing him away. Shark gets down on his knees and Regis walks up to him to finish the job, but before he could deliver the final blow, Kranz jumps in between, making Regis fall back. He immediately eats the pills as well and asks Shark whether he can stand. Shark stands up happily, thinking that together with Kranz they will end this fight, but to everyone's surprise, Kranz punches straight through Shark's torso and drains him entirely, making him much more powerful than he already was. Regis looks at him in disgust and uses his magic blast at him, but Kranz simply smacks it away, shocking him. He immediately rushes at Kranz with a magic punch, but Kranz dodges and smashes his head on the ground. Regis lays down on the ground, but Kranz has had enough and he starts moving towards M21. But Regis is not done yet, and he gets up once again to charge up another magic blast at Kranz. He stands there panting, but as the dust clears, he is horrified to see Kranz is completely fine, and he immediately rushes towards Regis and gives him such a strong uppercut that he smashes into the ceiling and becomes unconscious. He starts walking towards M21 again, but stops to see a mysterious figure walking towards him, who turns out to be Cool Dude Ray. On top of the roof, Pony has Frank at gunpoint, and Frank is contemplating whether or not to release his actual powers, as Ray told him not to release his actual powers without his consent, but he also realizes that if he doesn't use his latent power, he might lose this duel, but to him, following his master's order is more important. Pony, however, ended up using the wrong words at the wrong time by telling Frank that after he kills him, he will kill that idiot who went inside. This enrages Frank to madness, and he gets surrounded by a dark aura, which even starts burning away the gun that Pony had in his hands. He quickly backs off, confused at what was happening, but Frank tells him that the biggest mistake that he made up until now in his entire life was bad-mouthing his master, Ray. By the time he controls his anger, he has already released his true powers. He blames Pony for this and tells him that he will have to pay for this as well. A giant whirlpool of dark energy envelops the sky, turning everything purple. And then with the speed of lightning, a spear made up of dark energy pierces through Pony's body, pinning him to the ground. Frank then uses his magical energy to corrupt his gun, but he throws it away in time to save himself. Frank throws several more spears at him, which Pony runs to try and dodge, but one of them again stabs him through the leg, making him drop to one knee. Frank walks towards him and mocks him for talking big but being super weak. This provokes Pony and he tries to shoot Frank, but instantly another spear stabs him through the arm, stopping him. Frank finally has enough and creates a bunch of energy spears in the air and shoots them at Pony. He, however, gets one last boost of inspiration and is able to defect the spears, moving back and then points the gun at Frank, shooting at him. Frank, however, doesn't even move and lets the bullet come near him. But to Pony's surprise, the bullets stop as soon as they come close to his face and fall off. Frank then uses a blast of dark energy, which hurts Pony badly and makes him cry out in pain. Pony, however, is made up of real tough material and still ends up jumping over Frank, shooting at his face. Frank turns around to show that one of the bullets grazed his face, leaving a small trail of blood on his face. Frank looks at Pony and asks him why he is still fighting so bravely when there is no way he could win, but Pony ignores him and rushes towards him once again, while Frank shoots a bunch of magic blades at him, which he is able to dodge and appears behind Frank, aiming a gun at his head again, but Frank simply uses his magic energy to grab Pony's entire body, twisting the gun out of his hand. He then reveals his true power, and another huge cloud of dark energy forms above them as he converts all of them into countless spears and shoots all of them at Pony while holding him in place, leaving no room for his escape. Pony gets stabbed by the spears, and his powers wear off entirely as he returns to his normal self and falls over to the ground. Sierra also arrives at the scene and watches as Frank goes towards the fallen Pony, ready to end his misery. Sierra, who is very kind, asks Frank if he is actually going to kill Pony, to which he replies that he is. But before he could kill him, Pony looked at Sierra and told her that the kids were in danger below and they should quickly hurry her to save them. He also asked her to apologize from his side to the kids for putting them in danger. This sudden show of care towards the kids makes him reconsider, and Frank decides not to kill him. Sierra goes back inside, and while walking through the upper floor, ends up meeting with Fat again, who has taken the pill and is jacked up, holding an entire rocket launcher in his hands. He shoots a projectile at her, but she simply deflects it with her hands before summoning her sole weapon, which is a scythe. Fatty again shoots a shell at her, but this time she retorts by using her scythe and splits the projectile in half, while also cutting Fatty into 2 fat pieces. On the main floor, Rye enters the room and walks straight up towards Kranz. Kranz looks at him and asks him who he is, but Rye retorts by asking who the hell gave him permission to speak. Kranz is stunned at this statement, but before he could say anything, a sudden heaviness was felt in the air, and suddenly, both he and Tao were pinned to the ground by an extraordinary amount of gravity, which is one of the numerous powers that Rye has. Kranz tries to move, but Rye again asks him whether anyone has given him permission to move, and he slams his face to the ground without even touching it. Kranz somehow manages to get up and slashes in the air, which destroys the pillars behind Ray, but he himself stands unscathed. Kranz takes his twin blades out and gets ready for a duel. He jumps towards Ray and attacks him with one of the blades. The attack is so powerful that almost the entire area crumbles and dust is everywhere. Shin and the others are scared for Ray, as they still have no idea how strong he actually is. As the dust clears, however, they realize that Ray was simply able to stop Kranz's attack completely by grabbing his hand, and then simply saying the word "Begone Thought," which results in Kranz getting blasted back into the walls. Kranz gets out of the crevice and realizes that even after absorbing the shark already, he is still no match for this boy, so he screams at Tao to run over to him and use his pill so Kranz can absorb him as well. Everyone tells him not to go, but Tao knows that he also has a duty that he has to fulfill. He walks over to Kranz, ready to take the pill, but Kranz is so impatient that he holds his head in the air and then tells him to quickly eat the pill. The loser feels really bad for Tao, as he was trying to help the kids all along and was nice to them. He begs Ray to save him as he is a good person, but Kranz tells Tao to quickly transform and then threatens to kill the loser first. This was enough to enrage Tao, who uses his magic to wrap cords around Kranz's neck, pushing him back and jumps towards the side of our group, claiming that he will never support him for hurting kids, but an angry Kranz has super speed and is able to reach up to Tao very easily, grabbing his face once again, and was about to land a powerful punch, which will kill him. But he is stopped by Ray, who merely speaks the word "stop," and that is enough to stop Kranz's empty body into place. Ray is so cool that after doing that, he walks up to the loser and asks him why he begged him to save Ray's life. The loser seems confused and apologizes, but Ray tells him that they are friends and he can simply ask him for help. He then turns towards Kranz and decides to end the fight. He raises his hand and suddenly, each and every droplet of blood inside the room starts swirling around his head. This totally shocks even Regin, who remarks that only the nobles could do that kind of magic. Kranz tries to dodge the blood splashing around him, but he realizes that if this keeps up, he will end up losing, so he decides to rush towards Ray. But he is ready and uses his magic to push him back before using all of the blood in the area to completely shred Kranz to the point that he is erased from existence. The battle gets over and finally they all return home. And 21 and Pony are nursed back to health, while Frank apologizes for releasing his powers when he should have asked for his consent. But Ray tells him that he trusts him and knows that if he broke his promise to Ray, there is definitely some kind of reason that gave him no other choice. Frank is delighted to hear that his master trusts him so much and beams at him before walking to the dining table to have breakfast. After breakfast, M21 overhears Pony and Tao talking about how they want to leave the Union and pretend to be dead, as they have no other place to go. A 21 hears this and goes over to Frank before they can leave and bows in front of him, begging him to let these two stay with him, as he knows that Union will find and kill them otherwise. Frank smiles at him and tells him that he doesn't have to beg him for anything, as this is his home as well, and of course they can stay in this house as they can be used as important assets as well.